You remember George Mason when we read about him and how he talked about how he could not sign the United States Constitution at the Constitutional Convention, and he walked out and said, I can't do that unless there is a list of fundamental rights that people have that the government may never violate. A list of fundamental rights. Well, that is known as the Bill of Rights. And while George Mason walked out of the Constitutional Convention, uh, and therefore was not able to actually write these, his his dramatic showing there did convince a lot of followers to continue his ideas, and he inspired people like James Madison, the father of the Constitution, to write the very first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the very first 10 changes, 10 additions to the Constitution. And if you walk around saying, I know my rights, you're talking about the Bill of Rights. And these were written by James Madison, September 25th, 1789. And these also had to be ratified. So these also had to be approved before they were made law. So ratification is being approved and then made law. So once they are ratified, they are part of the Constitution and they are part of the law of the land. They're ratified December 15th, 1791. So Amendment number one. Amendment number one. Amendment number one. It's freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and you have the freedom to petition your government, to ask your government for things. Amendment two, two fingers, is the right to keep and bear arms. Amendment three fingers, you got a little teepee going on, no house, see, no quartering of soldiers, 3 fingers. Amendment four fingers, is freedom from, imagine a police officer creepily staring through your window looking for stuff you might have done wrong. Freedom from unreasonable searches and unreasonable seizures of stuff. So, Amendment 4, no unreasonable searches or seizures without a warrant. You got to ask the judge. And if the judge says, nah, you don't have a good enough reason, Mr. Police Officer, you don't get to search my house. And you don't get to take stuff out of my house. Got to have that warrant. Do you have a warrant, officer? Because if you don't have a warrant, you can go get a warrant. Amendment 5. Amendment 5. I'm going to put there in sign language. This is the sign language for fine. It'll be all fine if you just keep your mouth shut. You don't have to speak. Amendment 5. Amendment 5 is the right to due process of law. Freedom from self-incrimination. I don't have to speak. If I think me speaking is going to get me into more trouble, you can talk all you want, Mr. Police Officer, Mr. Judge, Mr. Justice, Mr. Mrs. whoever you think you are. You can try and make me talk, but I don't have to. Fifth Amendment. And no double jeopardy. Due process means fair treatment under the law. That's habeas corpus. And double jeopardy is the prosecution of a person twice for the same offense. Can't do that. Fifth Amendment, it'll all be fine if I just keep my mouth shut. Amendment 6. Amendment 6. Additional protections to people accused of crimes, such as the right to a speedy and public trial. A speedy and public trial. See what I'm doing there? A speedy and public trial, a trial by an impartial jury in criminal cases, so members of the jury cannot already know about the case, and you have the right to be informed of criminal charges. The police and the judges and the lawyers, they cannot hold some court case against you without you knowing about it. You have to be told you're being accused of this. So, yeah, you can't be accused of something without knowing it. Witnesses must face the accused. So if you're being accused of murder and they say, well, we have a witness who saw it. Who? I want to meet them. I want to see them. Because if not, that witness isn't worth anything. The U.S. Constitution, 6th Amendment, speedy trial, means you have to let me face my accuser. And the accused is allowed his or her own witnesses and to be represented by a lawyer. So if you're accused of a criminal charge, you have the right to a lawyer. They cannot tell you no. Amendment 7 is right of a trial by jury in criminal cases and some in civil cases. So you have, you have your little jury right here. You have your two little lawyers. This is your right to a trial by jury. Right to a trial by jury. Amendment 8, it's all about that money. It's all about that money. Amendment 8 is freedom from excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishments. The punishment must fit the crime. If I steal a bag of popcorn from Walmart, they cannot give me 20 years in jail. That doesn't fit. If I steal a pencil from Mr. Taylor's classroom, I can't sentence you to the death penalty. That doesn't fit. The punishment must fit the crime. So it's all about that money. Eighth Amendment, no excessive fines, no excessive bail. Bail is where, let's say I'm accused of a crime and the judge says, we're going to put you in prison before your trial. I think you might run away if I let you out. So bail, I'm going to set you at $50,000. You have to pay that $50,000 before you can get let out of jail. This is where bail bonds comes in and stuff like that, where they'll pay the money, and as long as you show up, they get their money back. Okay. Amendment 9, just because rights are listed in the Constitution does not mean that people do not have other rights. So 5 fingers, 4 fingers, you can hug yourself and something go, these are my rights. 9 fingers, my rights. And just because rights are listed in the Constitution, all those other rights that aren't written down, like the right to go buy chicken from Chicken Express, I have the right to make a paper airplane in the safety of my own home, I have the right to ask my mother if I may, do chores around the house. You have rights that are not in the Constitution. Those are your rights, the obvious rights. And the last of the 10 amendments, the last of the first ones, if a power is not in the Constitution, that power does not go to the federal government. It goes to the states. So that little shining light, that shining diamond, just high in the air. It's mythical. It's ethereal. It represents all those rights that are not in the Constitution, that don't really belong to people. Those belong to states. The 10th Amendment was a catch-all saying, we the Constitution writers, we know there's going to be other stuff we're not thinking about. Well, if we didn't think of it, the states have that power, not the federal government. So, the Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. It spells out Americans' rights in relation to their government. It guarantees civil rights and liberties to an individual, like freedom of speech, press, religion. It sets rules for due process of law and reserves all powers not delegated to the federal government to the people of the United States. And it specifies that the enumeration, the listing of these in the Constitution, of certain rights shall not be construed, shall not be misunderstood, to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So just because these rights are in the Constitution does not mean you can twist these rights into an excuse to take away rights from somebody else. So constitutional amendments are changes made to the Constitution. And that means that this above list of amendments is not the original diction. It's not the original word choice. I've simplified them. The original ones were much more flowery language, and I've kind of simplified them to make things easier for you. This is the last reading you have for this unit. I hope you're learning, and I hope you're having fun a little bit.